So this is the thing what we have to work it out. So this is the CPU scheduling algorithm, and we have the round robin algorithm which we have to work it out. So FCFS, SJF, we talked about it. Priority scheduling also we have worked on it. Now the pending one, the last one is round robin, and the time quantum they have given it as 1. So so just write it down on your notepad. So this one. So we have P1 as a process, P2, P3, P4 and P5, and the burst times 1, 2, 2, 1 and 5. So this is the burst times, and these are the processes. Now let us assume the time quantum. Let us assume the time quantum is some 2 millisecond. Instead of 1, let us look at it to 2 millisecond. Okay, so that is the thing. So first we have to emphasize our task on the Gantt chart. We have to emphasize our task on the Gantt chart. So this is the Gantt chart. Starts at 0, and now P1 is there. So P1 it is going to occupy for 2 milliseconds. Later on P2, as the time quantum slot is less, it is going to have only 1 millisecond. It is done. P3, time quantum and its burst time are same. P4, it is less than the time quantum. So this is 5 here. So this is 5 here and 6. After that, we have P5 and the time quantum is 2 seconds. So we have up to 8. So still for P1 we have 8. For P5 we have 3. So round robin after P5, again it has to repeat to P1. So we have to write P1 for 2 seconds, 10. Next we have to write, so 8 is reduced to 6 here. Next we have to reduce 3 to 1. So 2 milliseconds we have to assume for P5. So this is 12 here, and followed by P1, that is up to 14, and P5 is going to have the remaining time only for 1 millisecond, so it goes up to 15 here. So still we have 4 intervals. So again what we can do is we can write P1 up to 17 and finally again close P1 up to 19. So that is how we are going to build the Gantt chart, that too for this round robin non-preemptive scheduling algorithm. Okay, so now let us compute the waiting time. Let us compute the waiting time of all the jobs. So how do we complete the waiting time of a process? Means first we are going to take it as P1, arrival time is 0, P2, again arrival time is 0. So for all the jobs arrival time is 0 only. So that one we are going to subtract it at the end and up to P5. Fine. Next one. So let us talk about P1. So P1 to complete its job, it has waited. It has, even though it got a chance, see, so it got a chance at 0 minus 0. Fine. Later on what happened was P1 now you can see the P1 chance. So P1 it is has existence again here. Therefore, what happens was, now you have to subtract 2 when it has completed this, and when it has got an opportunity at 8. Again, the P1 it had made a chance at 12th and it has ended at 10 here. So what we have to do, we have to subtract 10 here and we have to put 12 here. Subtract 10 and 12, followed by again P1 it has got a chance here. So P1 it has ended at 14, so that one we are going to subtract. Again P1 got the opportunity at 15, so 15 we are going to take it. So that is how we are going to compute the interval for P1. So P2, yes, it had an opportunity at second. P3, there is no repetition, so again it has an opportunity at 3. P4, there is no repetition, it got the opportunity at 5. Now let us discuss with P5. So P5 it has arrived at 0 and it has got an opportunity at 6. It has got an opportunity at 6. So 6 minus 0. But its job is not completed, right? So again we have to verify where P5 got a chance. So P5 got a chance, P5 got a chance at 10. So it has been waiting at the 8. So minus 8 and this is 10 here, followed by the last one. So again P5 it is waiting for its job to be getting serviced and it has been up to 14 seconds and it has completed at 12 here. So 12 and followed by this 14. So this is how we are going to compute the waiting time. So can you give me the mathematical calculation, please? What is P1 total? P1 total is 0 minus 0 plus 8 minus 2 plus 12 minus, pardon?
9.
9 plus 2 plus 3 plus 5 plus, please, 6 plus 2 plus 2, 10, right? So divided by total number of jobs. There are only 5. So how many milliseconds is the final answer?
29 divided by 5, sir.
Okay. So we will be getting 5 5 is 25. So 5.4. Okay, 5.4 milliseconds. And now let us work on the turn around time. So job submission to job completion. So no intervals, right? So P1 has arrived at 0 and P1 has completed out at 19. P2 arrived at 0. P2 completed at 3. P3 arrived at 0, 5. P4 arrived at 0, completed its execution at 6. P5, you can observe, it has its last presence at 15 and finally its job is done at 17. Therefore, 17 minus 0. Therefore, we have to write 17 minus 0. So, mathematical part, 19 plus 3 plus 5 plus 6 plus 17 divided by 5. Answer?
That is 50 divided by 5, sir.
Fine, fine.
One.
So we'll get
1 millisecond.
10.
Oh, sorry, 10 milliseconds.
10 milliseconds. So that is how we are going to compute the round robin. Okay. So one more textbook example is there. This we will discuss and move to the further one. And this we will discuss only the SJF. So this is interesting because we have worked only on preemptive scheduling. We are non-preemptive scheduling. Now let us work on preemptive scheduling, and that too we will work on an example called as SGF. Okay, so you can see this example here. P1 is given as 0, P2 given as 4, P3 given as 3, and the burst times are 8, 4, and 1. Let us work only on the shortest job first. Let us work on the shortest job first. And remember, there is an arrival time, that is 0 millisecond, 4 millisecond, and 1 millisecond. So, okay, this is 0.4 and 4. So, for our convenience, what we will do is we will make it as 0, 4, and 1. Okay. So, let us, I will write again on this whiteboard here. So, we have P1, we have P2, and we have P3 as a process. So let us assume Pg1 arrived at 0 millisecond, P2 arrived at 4 millisecond, and 3 at 1 millisecond. This way I am going to call it as arrival time. And we are computing the burst times 8, 4, and 1. Okay, let us redefine the problem like this. And now we are going to use an algorithm called as preemptive shortest job first. Preemptive shortest job first. So this is what we have to discuss. So this is the thing. You can start working along with me parallelly. So first we have to build the Gantt chart. First we have to build the Gantt chart. So in this Gantt chart, P1 arrival time is 0. That is important. So at 0th interval, P1 doesn't have any competition, right? At 0th interval, P1 doesn't have any competition. There is no P2 arrival, there is no P3 arrival. So by default, so at the 0th millisecond, P1 is in the Gantt, and it goes up to 1 millisecond. Assume it goes up to 1 millisecond. So it is having shortest as 7 here. So now we can see this P3, it has arrived at 1 millisecond. P3, it has arrival time at 1 millisecond. So now what happens? It compares the, now it is going to take up this P3 here. Okay, it is going to take up P3. So P3 is there. P3 computes for 1 millisecond. Okay, later on it is going to it is at the 2nd millisecond. P2 will come at 4th millisecond. Still 3rd and 4th are pending, right? So what is happening it has 2 milliseconds of time. Meanwhile, P2 is not coming because P2 will come at 4th millisecond. Now P1 is again in the Gantt chart and with the CPU. So again P1 is going to enter here. So it executes up to the 4th millisecond. It executes up to the 4th millisecond. Now what is happening? So what is happening here is, so at the 4th millisecond, P2 occurs and P2 burst time is 4. So P2 is given a chance because the shortest, 1 second, can you correct me here? So shortest job first, right? So how many milliseconds at this time still it is pending for P1? P1, how many milliseconds it is pending?
5, sir. 5.
No. I think 3, I think 3 because
No,
it has
so
consumed 1 second and here it has consumed 2 seconds. So 8 minus 2. So 8 minus 3. Yeah, total 5. 5 is greater than 4. Obviously, P2 will go into the scene. Yeah, thank you. So now we are going to have only the P2. So P2 consumes up to 8 milliseconds. And finally, there is no other job left. Again, P1 will come into picture. And what happens was, still it is having 5 there. So 8 plus 5 is 13. So that is how we are going to compute the job here. So let us compute the waiting time. So P1 we are going to assume P1 is going to arrive at 0. P1 is going to arrive at 0 and it has an opportunity at 0, 0 minus 0. Next one, P1 is done up to 1, again P1 is entered up to 2. So what is going to happen? It is 2 minus 1 plus, again P2 is, again P1 is from 8 and ends at 13. So up to 8 it is going to wait. So but P1 it has completed up to 4th millisecond. So what we can do is it is 8 minus 4. Now let us take into P2 scenario. Arrival time of P2 is 4 seconds. So remember, this is non-preemption. This is called as a preemption algorithm. We are not discussing the non-preemption algorithm. We have to compute the, look into the arrival time aspect. So the arrival time aspect, we can see P1 is going, P2 is going to have at 4th second, and so it is going to have a chance at 4 when it is entered. So there it is going to have 0. Now let us come into the third scenario. P1 entered at 1 and it is going to have a chance. P3 it is going to have a chance at 1 here. So we are going to get this answer 1 minus 1. So this is 0 and this is 0, and we are going to have 8 minus 4, that is 4, 4 plus 1, we are going to have this as 5. So 5 plus 0 by 3, we are going to get it as the average waiting time. So what is the value? We are going to get it is 1.7, right, or 1.6. So 1.65 some millisecond. So next we are going to work around turn around time. So P1 we are going to take the content. P1 arrived at 0 and P1 completed a job at 13. Submission between, the difference between submission and conclusion. So P1 concluded at 13, submitted at 0. Total difference, we call it as turnaround time. Next we have to compute P2. P2 has an arrival at 4 and P2 completed P2 completed its job at 8. So 8 minus 4 here. So it concluded at 8. Next P3. P3 its arrival time is at 1 and P3 it has concluded at 2. So now the answer is 13 plus 4 plus 1 divided by 3. So we are going to get, yeah, pardon, we are going to get this as 6 milliseconds. Yeah, 6 milliseconds. So that is how we are going to work with the preemption. So computing time for waiting time, for turnaround time will differ if we are going to have an algorithm called as preemption. So in preemption, we are considering the arrival times. It is varied arrival times. One process can come at 0, one process can come at 4, one process can come at 1. But as far as non-preemption is concerned, we will assume all the jobs, they will arrive at 0 millisecond. So that is the best difference between preemption and the non-preemption. So that is how we are going to end this topic also, and this unit also. Now we can close this and this, and let us go back to our window. So we have 152 attendees. Let us download the list, and now we will talk this unit 3. Let us begin about unit 3. So welcome to unit 3, titled process synchronization. So when we are going to say it is synchronous, so synchronization is that 2 or more events to happen at the same time. Two or more events to happen at the same time, then we are going to say it is a process synchronization. So it is called a synchronization here. So some of the thing example, let us look in our previous classroom examples. If I have an hour at 11 to 12, so A section 11 to 12, B section 11 to 12, C section 11 to 12. Maybe subjects will be different, but all of you have a class at 11 to 12. So A section, B section, C section are synchronous at the same interval of time, right? So that is where we are going to buzz the word. Similarly, we share some Google Sheet. If we are going to give some shared form, so what happens? All of us can open the same Google form at a time, type our entries. Again, that is one more example of a synchronous. So at a unit interval of time, assume at T0, two or more process, they are going to compete for a same process. Two or more devices or two or more jobs, they are competing for the same process. To which process we have to give. So those all issues are going to be some of the problems in process synchronization. It can be a critical section problem, it can be Peterson's solution, it can be a synchronization hardware, maybe mutual exclusion, maybe semaphores, and dining philosopher's problem, producer consumer problem. So these are, and monitors. So these are all some of the examples of process synchronization. So two or more events, they are competing at the same interval of time for a same resource. Then the problem was to which device that has to be given. So there the synchronization is coming to picture. So DBMS you have at transaction management. So the transaction management, we say it is ACID properties. So in ACID properties, then we are going to say mutex, then we say shared, so weight signal, whatever concepts there we have discussed regarding the transaction management, the same concepts will be discussed again. The concepts are actually born in operating system, then they are implemented to the database systems. So operating system is the first. So there they have implemented the transaction management synchronization concepts, and thereby it has been brought to the next. Similarly, the thread concept, the thread management concept, multi-threading management concept, first it was given to operating system and it was pulled by all the OOP concepts like Java or C or Python, etc. So the origin of multi-threading, the origin of transaction management, it was from the operating system. Then it has been a big issues in a detailed way for the remaining subjects. Okay. So now let us look into the first aspect. So coming to the processes. So when a synchronization problem is going to arise, so synchronization problem will arise when there it is going to have a word called as concurrency. When a concurrency will come, two or more events, they are going to happen for a same interval of time. So two or more events. So we have a resource here. So I am having CPU1, CPU2 and C3, and all of them, they are going to ask for a same device at a time. At that time, the concurrency problem is going to be occurred. So now how to solve that concurrency? Of course, we have discussed earlier, either you can go with shortest job first, round robin scheduling, etc. But along with that, we have critical region, critical section, semaphores, mutual exclusion, monitors. So these dining philosopher problem and bounded buffer problem, producer consumer problem. So these are the different Peterson solution. So these are the different things what a process management is going to addresses towards this process synchronization problems. So multiple jobs are there, and these multiple jobs, they are competing in parallel, in concurrent to the same resource what they want. but that resource has to be utilized properly, and that resource has to be allocated to one job at a time. So it is stuck in that situation to which job it has to give. So there are different solutions. One, they are going to call it as critical region. Another, they call it as critical section, mutual exclusion, followed by monitors. And there are solutions with Peterson solution, producer consumer problem, dining philosophers problem, bounded buffer problem. So these are the different approaches which has given solutions for the process synchronization problem. So that is regarding the background. So what will happen if concurrency is going to do? What will happen if concurrency is going to happen means there may be a chance which it is going to result into data inconsistency. There may be a chance which, if I am going to have two or more things to happen at the same time, there may be a chance which is going to have a concurrency issue. What is that issue? Assume we have given you a shared sheet, and then I have given you have you registered? Then somebody is telling yes. So meanwhile, some of your friend doesn't like you, and what she will do is, instead of yes, she is going to move to no. That means you feel that your data is secure and you feel that you are depositing yes there, but meanwhile the same combo box is going to be accessed by another also. So she replaces from yes to no. You feel that my data is yes, but the other girl, she is replacing that. That means whatever value you are going to put, that may not be recorded. It is upgraded, it is updated. So how to take back again? Yes, there are a lot of issues. We have troubleshootings, nor we are having the different tools, debugging tools to track the changes. So in the shared sheet, that is another issue. So still the inconsistency is going to be happen if there is a concurrency. What is inconsistency? Because I had my data as yes, or somebody has changed to no, because both yes and no is accessible to all the students. That is why your data has lost some inconsistency. And second thing, it is going to look into the order of execution of the cooperating process. So which process has to be executed first, which process has to be executed next, that it has to be ordered. So the ordering cycle has to be done. How is an ordered cycle to be done? It can be done either using the concept of graphs, either it can be used with the concept of graphs, nor it is going to have with a trees. So it is going to maintain a data structure. It is going to maintain a data structure, and that too data structure, it is going to have a cyclic, it maintains a cyclic, or it is going to maintain a acyclic. So it is maintaining cyclic data structure or an acyclic data structure using the concept of graphs and trees. It is maintaining operating system, it is maintaining the order of the cooperating process. Cooperating process is nothing but I have a printer and you too wants a printer. So the printer which is used by me, I should give you to for a shared access. So the device, the resource which is with me, you will also use the same device. So I should cooperate with you and you should cooperating with me. So the same way the process will compete for a resource, and resource is a shared, and that shared resource has to be distributed among the multiple process. So how the distribution is going to happen? It can be with critical region, section, monitors, semaphores, mutual exclusion. So these are all the different concepts which can be discussed from in detail from tomorrow. Fine. That is what for today. So now I'm concluding. Okay, fine. I think we have the class, right? It is 11:33. Fine. Let us go ahead. So now the first concept. So the first concept here we are going to have will be the producer consumer problem. So the first way of sharing mechanism will be the producer and consumer problem. So the first synchronization problem, what we can bring before you after the background of concurrency, etc. will be the producer and consumer problem. Assume there is a shared data structure. So this is a shared data structure, and the shared data structure, assume it is an array. People are going to put the elements into an array, and the elements are going to be used and moved to some other location. Then we are going to say it is an output approach, right? So this word we are going to call it as producer, and this word we are going to call it as consumer. Okay, a producer is a process, consumer is also a process, right? Producer is a process and consumer is also a process. So one thread is going to do an input operation, another thread is going to do a output operation, and both of them they are going to do it in concurrent, and both of them they are going to do it in parallel. Now this problem we are going to call it as a process synchronization problem. We are going to call this one as process synchronization problem. So where the synchronous mechanism will happen? If I don't have anything on a buffer, then the other person doesn't have anything to pull it out, right? If there is 10, 20, 30 values in an array, then only 10, 20, 30 can be deleted or removed from that array. If the producer is not producing the item, how will a consumer will consume the item, right? So the buffer is empty, then we can't do either an input operation or an output operation. Until there is an input operation, output operation cannot be there. Okay, once the input operation is done, then we are initiating the output operation. So when it is going to be completed, until it goes up to the buffer size. Assume there are some 10 elements in a buffer. So how many elements I can fill it in the buffer? I can fill only the 10 elements as a size. After the 10 elements are filled, then each element is picked up and moved to some other location. That means the producer is going to produce an item, then the consumer is not going to have an entry to enter into the buffer. Once the producer is going to say that I am done, I have produced all the variables, then it is going to use another variable called as an out, and it is consuming whatever data item it has put into the data structure, that it is going to pick it out. So a producer is a process, consumer is a process, and we should see that no two process will use the same data structure at a time to see that now we are building a data, we are building this producer consumer problem. So see that we have a buffer, so that the buffer we are going to mention this array. We are going to mention this array as a buffer here. So in and out I am mentioning this item as buffer, this item as buffer here. So now we can look into this algorithm. So we are going to write a pseudo code for that. So while true, produce an item into the next produced, and second, while counter is equals to buffer size. So assume this is a buffer with an array, and array size is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 elements are there. Now the buffer size I can assume as 5 here. So counter value is going to be incremented with, by default it is going to be 1. So counter value, it will be incremented one after the other. So item 1 should be taken up and it has to be filled. Item 2 has to be taken up. Here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they are going to be called it as indexes. So 5E6, 534, 519, 5B0, you will not get access to move the slides to the next, right? So, so what will be happening here was, so the counter, it is going to be initiated with the value, it is going to be initiated with the value of 1, and it will be incremented one after the other. It will be incremented to one after the other. So until it reaches to the maximum size. So we are going to have the buffer as an item, and I am going to call it as an index here. Buffer is name of an array here, and this is called as a shared variable here. This is called as a shared variable. So one by one item, it is going to be moved into the buffer. So in it is tied up with the index value, and it is going to increment up to the maximum size. So how to raise this counter value? Now I am going to make this counter value as an increment operation. Until 5 iterations are finished, the producer, he is going to produce the item up to the maximum size. So initially the counter is set to 0, and thereby it is going to be incremented one after the other, and it fills the then it is going to say until it is going to fill the buffer, it is going to produce the item. So that is all what this producer is going to do. So let us wind up this class here. So I'm discarding this and stopping the recording here.